With the announcement of the Breath of the Wild sequel, a lot of fans are clamoring for a playable Zelda. And I get it. Perhaps more than any other franchise, The Legend of Zelda is responsible for the proliferation of the damsel in distress trope. Even the Mario series regularly gives Peach moments to shine and save the day. But unlike Mario, the Zelda games go beyond distress being a gameplay element to it being a plot point. There's often a narrative reason that Zelda is kidnapped, and they're usually not the best. Ever since the first two games, she doesn't usually start out kidnapped, so instead she'll risk herself as often and as much as Link, but is always captured and unable to free herself. And with the exception of the awesome spectral knight biracial heroine of Spirit Tracks, it's hard to describe Zelda as an active participant in most of the games named after her. Which is why Hyrule Warriors is so surprising. Somehow, Nintendo, which has a mixed track record to say the least, and Team Ninja, whose brand could best be described as sexualizing underage girls, working together were able to make a game that wasn't just a break from their usual, but a vast improvement, and a positive step in terms of representation. Obviously that's a big assertion, so why do I think so? Well, let's go through the story. The main plot centers around four characters: Zelda, Impa, Lana, and Link, and it takes place in Hyrule. Ganondorf's spirit was sealed away in 4 different points of time. With Ganondorf away, the Triforce needed to be kept in balance, and this was done by a powerful sorceress, charged with observing the timeline. But that's backstory. The story begins when Zelda has a nightmare that an oil spill is coming for Hyrule. She alerts her general and advisor Impa, who suggests that they look for the reincarnation of the hero. And this is important. They don't find anyone obvious, despite Link looking like every reincarnated hero ever, but are besieged by evil forces. In the battle, Link awakens his Triforce, but it seems Zelda is captured. This leaves the Hyrulean army under the command of Impa, who is more than capable. She gives Link green clothes, by tradition making him the hero of Hyrule, and that will also be important later. Seeking the leader of these forces, Impa, Link, his translator Proxy, and the Hyrulean army move throughout Hyrule, recruiting Sheik, a mysterious ninja-like character, and Lana, a powerful yet cheerful sorceress. The 5 heroes were informed by Lana that Sia, a member of Lana's tribe, was the individual that sparked this current war. She was the Guardian of Time, charged with observing the timeline. Ganondorf's spirit was sealed away in 4 different points of time, and Sia watched over these points to ensure the safety of all beings. However, during her observation, she became infatuated with Link. Unable to accept his relationship with Zelda, she instead sought to claim Hyrule as her own, to defeat Zelda, and to possess Link. Our heroes confront Sia, who has secured the Triforce of Power, where we see that we not only have Link's Triforce of Courage, but that Sheik has the Triforce of Wisdom. As Sia has played Ocarina of Time before, she's not terribly surprised. She breaks the timeline, allowing all remains of Ganondorf's spirit to exist in one reality, with the hopes that Ganondorf can grant her Link. Our heroes split up. Lana goes to Twilight Princess Town, where she joins Midna and Agatha. Link goes to Skyward Swordville, where he teams up with Fi, and Impa and Sheik go to Ocarina of Time Land, where they recruit Darunia and Ruto. Sheik is revealed to be Zelda in hiding. Lana explains that she and Sia were actually once the same person, and Link grows more confident. All of the Hyrule Avengers unite, but they don't successfully seal Ganon away. They first go to help Link acquire the Master Sword. Link's Chosen One story imbues him with an abundance of confidence, and he blindly rushes in to attack Sia, who turns the tables on him. However, despite her seemingly inevitable victory, Lana leads the Avengers to save Link, before Ganondorf shows up out of nowhere, betraying Sia and attacking Link. Still, they drive him back temporarily, and ultimately defeat Sia, leaving Lana saddened, but now in possession of the Triforce of Power. The friends depart with somber reflection on what it means to love someone, and what true power entails. Then we get a super awesome series of levels where you take Ganondorf from solitary warrior to king of the continent, regaining the complete Triforce and remaking Hyrule Castle in his own orange and pink image. The main story ends with the Avengers reuniting to take down Ganon, and it's super awesome. You get to choose which character you play as, meaning you can finally take down Ganondorf canonically as Zelda herself. Although personally, Impa is my favorite character, so I used her for almost every level. With Legends and Definitive Edition, we get separate canon stories revolving around Sia's rise to power, resurrection, and redemption, the appearance of the Wind Waker timeline, and Tetra's fight to restore it, and Linkle, an original character that believes that she is the chosen hero. Okay, so that's the recap out of the way. Now let's get into the analysis, which starts with the genius of character selection. Now, obviously, having playable female characters does not magically make a game not sexist. The aforementioned Dead or Alive series has more playable female characters than male ones, but it's still extremely sexist. But the way you can play as women in Hyrule Warriors is pretty progressive. Rather than have a set story everyone has to follow, like games like Mortal Kombat, most levels allow you to pick from one of many playable characters. The only times you're locked into a certain character are the opening level and a handful of ones where it wouldn't make sense to play as anybody else. Your first run-through of retrieving the Master Sword, Lana and Link's time travel missions, Ganondorf's levels, the first Sia and Linkle levels, and the last Linkle level. Every moment of an important battle lets you choose who to play as, meaning that there's not even a suggestion that Zelda is somehow less capable than Link. They don't need to make it explicit, but Zelda is just by default as capable. When she appears to be captured, in fact, she saves herself this time, legitimately, using the skills that Impa taught her to immediately rejoin the fight. This is not the only reason that this is my favorite portrayal of Zelda. She actually serves as a leader rather than a spy or a figurehead. She's allowed to have emotion, but she never feels unfocused. She can be dorky at times and serious at others, like an actual person. Perhaps most interestingly, though, in my opinion, her being a princess with the Triforce of Wisdom plays into the story beyond the typical ways. Her knowledge of diplomacy in foreign cultures allows her to manipulate enemies and recruit allies, and she manages to display wisdom beyond just a general case of foreknowledge, like in Ocarina of Time, or robotics research, like in Breath of the Wild, although that does sort of show up. She knows about anthropology, history, music, science, and politics, and she actually seems to deserve the Triforce of Wisdom. And she's not the only woman you can play as. Throughout the main story, the heroes you play as are Link, Impa, Zelda, Lana, Fi, Ruto, Darunia, Agatha, and Midna. An eclectic bunch to be sure, but this group fits together perfectly. From a who's who standpoint, it makes sense, mostly. The three recurring characters from throughout the franchise, the two companions of the most recent 3D games, and the two most important sages from the highest rated game of all time. I still don't see how Agatha made it. But by virtue of having multiple women, it avoids a problem that a lot of other stories run into. There is no representative. In media, if there's only one woman on the team of your heroes, she has to represent all women. Given that any one characteristic is going to be demonstrated as all women can be in this world, we either get offensive stereotypes of women, or women so concerned with being inoffensive that they have no discernible flaws. But when you have a lot of women, no negative trait is implied to be something all women have. Impa is suspicious of people obviously hiding secrets, but Lana is trusting, almost to a fault. Agatha is bubbly and optimistic, but Midna is cynical and aggressive. Fi is interested in serving others, and Ruto is interested in being served. All of the characters have their faults, but they also have strengths, which, again, aren't implied to be things that all women have or even should have. Impa is loyal, brave, and wise. Lana is friendly and adventurous. Agatha, though she seems to be aloof, is actually a really talented entomologist. Midna is proud, but in a good way. Fi is organized and a genius, and Ruto is a natural leader. The lack of need for a single representation also allows differences in design. Sure, Twilight Midna's body is similar to a supermodel's, but Impa is built like an athlete, and Tetra is kind of chubby. Heck, Toon Zelda, the aforementioned awesome biracial princess from Spirit Tracks, is a freaking muscly tank knight. And that also gets into design as well. Zelda expresses traditionally feminine traits in her clothing, with pink and purple and a skirt over her shorts, both things often associated with women. However, Impa's clothing is much more utilitarian, but she's no less of a woman, and just by virtue of having a lot of women as playable characters, no one design is meant to be what women are. And the characters themselves feed into the plot. The plot with Ganondorf is great fan service, no doubt, and it does show off some messages with Impa's amazing strategy and leadership, and Zelda's ability to unite people and change other people's minds. But the stories, I think, have actual intended messages, are Linkle's Tale and the levels revolving around the relationship between Lana and Cia. So, first of all, Linkle is awesome. She's hilarious. She's like Spider-Man if he didn't have any reason to be confident. She's a play on the concept of the chosen hero. She's a humble chicken farmer that thinks she's the reincarnation of the hero, raised on tales her grandmother told her, even though her neighbors say that everybody's grandmother told them those stories. But it's not ever made explicit whether or not Linkle truly is special. Sure, her compass seems to be magical, but that's after it fell into the hands of Majora, so make of that what you will. Rather, the story told with Linkle is kind of like Kung Fu Panda. To be special, you only need to believe that you are. Linkle got some crap upon her announcement, as people really wanted a female Link. But honestly, I think the story works better this way, and it goes along with the concept of you can play as any of these characters to take down Ganondorf. She doesn't need to be a reincarnated hero, or a princess, or a general, or a sorceress to make an impact, and neither do you. But, of course, the main story is between Cia and Lana, and it really is a story about possessiveness. But before we get into that, let me discuss how Cia's portrayal is actually quite awful. Now, to be clear, I think that as a character she has great potential, but the acumen with which she has been designed... So, she's split from the same person as Lana being good, Cia being bad. So why does Cia have darker skin? I really cannot think of any possible excuse for this. The character is the evil version of a light-skinned Japanese-coded woman, and she's given darker skin. This is without a doubt colorist and possibly racist. Was it intentional? Maybe not, but it doesn't matter. The implication is there. Light is good, dark is bad. Thankfully, Impa and Tetra both have darker skin, and they're North African and Melanesian/Polynesian coded respectively. If Cia was not meant to be the same person as Lana, however, this wouldn't be as much of a problem, but as it stands, it is. The other problem is in Cia's dress and accentuation of her body. So lots of people like to respond to claims that dress and body proportions of women in video games are objectifying by saying that some women choose to dress in similar ways in real life, and shaming fashion choices is sexist. This ignores the fact that fictional characters don't make their own choices. Even if they did, Cia's costume is so obviously designed to titillate straight men beyond the point of being realistic, and it's really a black mark on some otherwise decent designs. Lana and Zelda both actually show off a lot of skin, but it doesn't feel like it's meant to seduce or entice, but rather just be fashion. And Midna, in Twilight form, wears even less than Cia, and she does seem to strut and sashay, but it still feels like a fleshed-out character who is actively accentuating her sexuality, rather than a character's physical design being based on a desire to be sexually exciting to heterosexual men. I think the majority of the designs being decent could be thanks to both the lead designer being a woman, as well as Nintendo's generally more family-friendly tone. And if you really want to be disappointed, look up Cia's concept art. Still trying to be sexy, obviously, but it looks much more realistic and plausible. But even if Cia's design was something that could exist outside of fetish material, it'd still make a problem, implying scant clothing is bad, comparatively conservative clothing is good. But despite both of these comparisons, there actually is a really good story between these two. They both fall in love with a man that they don't know, and Cia decides that she's entitled to him, and Lana departs, focusing her abilities on helping strangers. While Cia is ultimately doomed by her inability to accept rejection, Lana moves beyond her initial romantic attraction to develop a deep friendship with Link, as well as Zelda. Even though she still has feelings for Link by the end of the story, those pale in comparison to the good she's able to accomplish with her new friends. And through her friendship, she comes to understand Link better, seeing he's not just a paragon of virtue. He has faults and makes mistakes, but the two, as platonic friends, make each other better. She never forces her desire for a relationship on him, and it's a great lesson that too many men I've encountered really need to learn. The friend zone is a stupid concept, based on the erroneous idea that friendship is somehow lesser than a romantic or sexual relationship, and Lana grows more powerful, pun intended, by recognizing this. But then that's where the Wind Waker levels come in. First of all, Tetra is basically the main character of the Wind Waker angle, which is awesome, because I love Tetra. But it also provides a redemption arc for Cia. Cia was jealous and willing to take action against Zelda, which is bad, but the purple magic or whatever helped corrupt her, and she literally lost her conscience. However, with remorse and actions taken to help those that she's wronged, which is an important aspect, she's welcomed back to Hyrule, even by Link, the person with the most legitimacy to be angry. Her redemption isn't predicated on being accepted as his friend, and it's certainly not based on Link falling in love with her, but rather on her confronting her past actions and working to correct them. And that's how a redemption arc should be done. Hyrule Warriors is not a perfect game, by any means. Ganondorf's character still relies on anti-Arab stereotypes, even if it is better than what it was in Ocarina of Time. Cia's design is problematic to say the least, as I just talked about, and Tingle is in it. But for all of its flaws, I think it is a step in the right direction for the Zelda franchise. Zelda's finally not a bit player or a distant guide in her own series, and Impa is no longer just the support to Zelda, but a character in herself. And the story manages to be both enthusiastically pro-women without ever outright saying that it is, which is also impressive. If you don't mind some grinding gameplay, and you have a rental store nearby, I'd recommend trying it out for yourself. Let me know what you think of the game, and thanks for I think it sucked! Thomas, I wasn't talking to you. No egos do ikana? No skeleton representation? Cuckoo droppings. Okay, you know what? Thomas, let's take a look at your case file. Goodbye, everybody.